If you live in London, Paris, or Milan, the idea of leaving your front door unlocked today sounds like madness. It's a memory from 1990. But what if I told you that world still exists? We analysed the 2025 and 2026 criminology data to find 7 strongholds in Europe where low vigilance is still a reality. Of course, these aren't the only places in Europe, and we invite you to share others in the comments. But we chose these 7 precisely because they have something to teach us. 3 lessons we'll cover at the end. Spoiler, you'll also find countries you were taught to fear. Welcome to Amazing Europe. Number 1. Slovenia. If I asked you to point on a map to the safest place in the world for a woman walking alone at 3 in the morning, your finger would probably land on Scandinavia or Switzerland. You'd be wrong. According to the latest data on perceived safety and the Global Peace Index reports, that country is in the Balkans. It's Slovenia. Forget the images of destruction associated with the Balkans in the 1990s. Slovenia is a different story. Slovenia today is a statistical anomaly that makes you think. Let's talk real numbers. While in countries like Belgium or Spain, robberies often exceed 100 cases per 100,000 inhabitants, in Slovenia that number collapses to 11. The homicide rate hovers around 0.5, about a third of London or Paris. Here, street violence is so rare that it makes the national news for weeks. But why? How does a former Yugoslav republic end up safer than so many other nations? The answer isn't the police, it's the social architecture. Slovenia turned its exit from Yugoslavia, the 1991 10-day war, into an enormous competitive advantage. While its neighbours sank into chaos, Ljubljana came out untouched, avoiding the social trauma and the rise of those wartime mafias that still plague other parts of the Balkans today. They kept a soft economic transition, which brings us to the real secret behind their success: the Gini coefficient. Slovenia has one of the lowest levels of economic inequality in the OECD area. The gap between rich and poor is minimal. There are no urban ghettos, no no-go zones, and none of the social despair that fuels predatory crime. This is proof of our first key message. Security isn't born from GDP, it's born from cohesion. When prosperity is widely shared, crime stops being a survival necessity and becomes just an unnecessary risk. Still, many of you will raise this objection. Sure, it's easy to be safe when you're a small alpine nation of 2 million people, homogeneous and tucked away in the mountains. True. But what happens if we look for that same safety in a much larger country, industrial and central, famous for having a capital that attracts millions of tourists and their wallets? Number 2, the Czech Republic. There's a warning every travel guide repeats obsessively before you land in Prague. Watch your wallet. And if you stick to reading online forums, you might think the Czech Republic is a minefield of thieves. Are they right? Yes. But they're only telling a tiny fraction of the truth. To understand Czech safety, we need to draw a hard line on the map. On one side, there's the Prague bubble, Charles Bridge, Old Town Square, tram number 22. Here, within just a few square kilometres, you'll find almost the entire national pickpocketing phenomenon concentrated in one place. It's a tourist trap where, yes, if you leave your iPhone on the table, it will probably vanish. But the moment you step outside that bubble, whether into residential neighbourhoods or across to other regions like Moravia or South Bohemia, you enter a completely different country. The real Czech Republic is an oasis of calm that can go toe-to-toe with Switzerland. Let's talk hard data. With a homicide rate of 0.47 per 100,000 inhabitants, this country is statistically safer than Vienna, Brussels or Copenhagen when it comes to your physical safety. And contrary to every media narrative about a world in decline, the numbers here are improving. In 2024, crimes recorded by the police fell by 4.5% compared with the previous year. Even the notorious pickpocketing numbers collapsed from nearly 6,000 nationwide to just over 4,000 in a single year. So what's the secret behind this stability? First, part of it is an efficient police force with an overall clearance rate above 55%. That's an exceptionally high average, driven by the fact that for violent crimes, the likelihood of getting caught is close to 95%. But the real cause is economic. the Czech Republic consistently maintains the lowest unemployment rate in the entire European Union, often below 3%. The logic is brutal but true. There are jobs for everyone. There's no labour force left for petty crime. If you want to earn money, you work. You don't need to steal the stereo out of someone's car. The Czech Republic teaches us that you don't have to be a remote island to be safe. You just have to be an orderly society that works. But if you think this level of order is impressive, wait until you see the giant to the north. We're about to enter a nation of 38 million people that has sealed off its eastern borders and where, thanks to a mix of culture and a brilliant statistical trick, home burglaries have become a thing of the past. Number 3. Poland. There's a stereotype that just won't die, a relic from the 1990s. Going to Poland? Watch your car. If you still believe that story in 2026, you're 30 years behind. Today's data doesn't just disprove that prejudice, it flips the entire map of European safety on its head. According to the latest Eurostat report on victimization, when asked, do you have problems with crime, violence, or vandalism in your area? Only 2.8% of Poles say yes. Compare that with 14% in France or 13% in Belgium. Poland is now the third safest country in the entire European Union in terms of residents' perceptions. And car theft, the old stereotype, it has fallen by 80% over 20 years and it's still dropping. But to find the real open-door reality, you have to look east. There's an invisible line that splits the country. The western regions closer to Germany have more European-style crime rates. But if you head into the eastern wall, in the Subcarpathian Voivodeship, you enter one of the safest macro-regions on the continent. Here, cities like Rzeszów record burglary rates so low they can compete with Swiss villages. Still, in the name of intellectual honesty, we have to reveal a statistical trick. Is everything as golden as it looks? Almost. Poland has a specific legal threshold. If someone steals something worth less than 800 zloty, about 190 euros, it isn't treated as a criminal offence under the law, but as an administrative infraction. That means if someone takes your old bicycle or a cheap phone, that incident often disappears from international crime statistics. But pay attention, this trick applies to objects, not to people. You can't hide physical violence behind bureaucracy. And in Poland, street violence is at historic lows. The secret is structural, homogeneity and cohesion. Unlike other countries, Poland hasn't allowed the rise of parallel societies or urban ghettos where the state's law doesn't reach. Here, values are shared by the overwhelming majority, and the family network, especially in the East, acts as a powerful social shock absorber, stopping youth delinquency before it even starts. This is a society that practices zero tolerance for disorder. If you break the social pact, you're out. But the real shock is coming now. We're entering Dracula's homeland. Everyone has described it to you as poor and unsafe. Yet in this country, the only deadly danger isn't crime, it's traffic. Number 4. Romania. Alright, we know some of you are already rushing to the comments to tell us off. Safe Romania? Oh, come on! But think about this. As many as 5 Romanian cities have long been recognised as being among the 100 safest cities on the entire planet. Neither France nor the United Kingdom nor even Spain can claim a similar concentration of urban oases at the top of global rankings. To understand why, look at cities like Cluj-Napoca, Brașov or Timișoara. Forget the old stereotype of a poor, dangerous East. Cluj today is nicknamed the Silicon Valley of Eastern Europe, wealthy, university-driven, packed with tech companies. Here, the opposite happens compared to other Western metropolises. While in Paris or New York, big cities are crime hubs and people flee to the countryside. In Romania, several major cities are fortresses of order, islands of civility surrounded by countryside. And the safest region? Transylvania, Dracula's homeland. Let's look at the data that shatters the myths. Car theft, stereotype number 1, is simply false. Romania has one of the lowest rates in the European Union, often 10 or 20 times lower than countries like France or Italy. But there's a crucial caveat. Up until 20 years ago, those figures were much higher. After joining the European Union, the organised theft professionals shifted their business westward, drawn by richer targets and a legal risk perceived as lower than Romania's harsh prisons. In any case, today the risk of assault in Cluj is statistically negligible. Gun laws are among the strictest in the world, and there is no gun culture. But pay attention, you're safe from thieves, not from drivers. Romania has the highest rate of road accidents in the European Union. The deadly danger doesn't wear a balaclava, it drives too fast. And if you're looking for safety that also feels like pure enjoyment of life, we need to head down to the sea. We're about to enter the place that holds the world record for night walks, where safety isn't enforced by the police, but by neighbours drinking wine in the street late into the night. Number 5. Croatia. There's a statistical figure that almost sounds like a typo, yet it's the European Union's documented reality. In an entire year, across the whole national territory of Croatia, fewer than 1,000 pickpocketing cases were recorded. To give you a sense of scale, in cities like Barcelona or Paris, that number is often reached and exceeded in a single week of everyday tourist madness. If you want to see with your own eyes what Europe looked like before modern anxiety, before train stations became no-go zones, and before getting home after dark turned into a risk calculation, you need to come here. Croatia is Europe's night champion. According to Eurostat, only 1.5% of Croatian citizens say they've had problems with crime or vandalism in their neighbourhood. That's among the lowest figures in the entire Union. Here, the sense of safety when walking alone after midnight isn't an opinion, it's a social fact that sits far above the European average. So what's the deeper lesson Croatia teaches the rest of the continent? The secret isn't CCTV, which is almost absent here. It's a fundamental truth. Social control beats the police. In Croatia, home ownership is close to 91%. This isn't a nation of anonymous renters who change neighbourhoods every 6 months. It's a society of settled residents who own the ground they walk on. When you own your home, you also own your neighbourhood. If a stranger is hanging around suspiciously, he won't be watched by a digital lens, but by 10 pairs of eyes studying him from the tables of open-air cafes. It's the urban planning idea of eyes on the street, elevated into a national defence system. Crime finds no room here because anonymity and indifference are in short supply. Cultural cohesion and a life constantly lived outdoors create an invisible but impenetrable barrier against petty crime. It's a model that doesn't cost a single extra euro in taxes, but it does require something several countries have sadly lost: an obsessive care for one's own territory. But if Croatia is street-level safety, then up in the Alps there is a canton where order has become pure democracy, a place where mutual trust still matters far more than any lock. Number 6. Switzerland. Alright, we know that for many people it's the obvious choice. But if you read the 2024 and 2025 federal bulletins with a clinical eye, you'll realise Switzerland's presence on this list isn't quite as automatic as it seems. In fact, there are 2 Switzerlands. There's the border one, Basel, Geneva, Zurich, where theft rates and cross-border crime are rising, in some cases above the European average. And then there's the rural heartland, where time seems to have stopped. Welcome to the canton of Appenzell-Innerrhoden. With around 16,000 inhabitants, this is the least populous canton in the Confederation, and it's here that the numbers become almost unbelievable. In 2023, across the entire cantonal territory, the police recorded a total of just 15 burglaries. It's a rate of roughly 94 cases per 100,000 inhabitants. To give you a sense of scale, that's 4 times lower than the Swiss average, and as much as 6 times lower than Denmark. In a continent where home burglaries are an epidemic, Appenzell is a fortress. Here, murders are so rare that annual statistics often show a clean zero. So what's the secret behind this immunity? It isn't technology, and it isn't the wealth of the banks. It's direct democracy. Appenzell is one of the last places on earth where laws are still voted on by a show of hands in the main square. That ancient ritual creates the highest level of social cohesion. When you look your neighbour in the eye as you vote on the rules of the community, the social pact becomes sacred. Anonymity, the fuel of crime, is suffocated here by mutual familiarity. Geography helps too. Appenzell is a cul-de-sac, a dead-end valley. It isn't a transit point. Mobile professional thieves, the kind who hit near highways to make a fast escape, avoid these blind valleys like the plague. Of course, Appenzell isn't alone. Data from the Federal Office shows that nearby cantons in central Switzerland, like Uri and Nidwalden, form a true alpine safety belt with almost identical statistics. Still, even in paradise, there's a warning. Recent data shows a nationwide 15% increase in so-called sneak-in thefts, opportunistic robberies through doors left unlocked. Cantonal police have started issuing alerts. Your trust is a virtue, but roaming gangs see it as an invitation. Appenzell holds because it's a cultural fortress, protected by mountains and tradition. But what happens when a nation relies only on geography and forgets to control who comes in? We're about to fly to what, for 14 years, was the safest country in the world, and which today has woken up in a nightmare it never saw coming. But before we reveal it, if you found this video informative, we'd really appreciate your support. Leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and click the bell so you don't miss our new videos. Thank you very much. Number 7. Iceland. We have to be honest. Until the very last minute, we weren't sure whether to include Iceland on this list. On paper, it's unbeatable. For 14 consecutive years, the Global Peace Index crowned it the safest nation in the world. But the 2024 and 2025 data tells a different story. Iceland today has split in two. In the north, in Akureyri or the Westfjords, you still find the postcard country. Doors left unlocked, keys in the ignition, zero crime. Up there, it feels like 1990 never ended. But in Greater Reykjavik, where most of the population lives, reality has changed radically. The island immunity is over. Over the last 24 months, the capital has seen a spike in violence that shocked everyone. What's happening? Iceland has discovered that in 2026, geography no longer protects you. As a wealthy nation, it has become an attractive market for international drug cartels. Investigations point to foreign gang infiltration and biker groups fighting for territorial control, bringing knives into Reykjavik's nightlife. The police, historically unarmed, now find themselves up against professional criminals. One important clarification about homicides. Iceland has gone from a historical average of 1 case per year to 8 in 2024, but the perpetrators aren't the gangs. The overwhelming majority are connected to the domestic sphere. The profile of the killer isn't the foreign gangster, but the local man, often with untreated mental health issues or substance abuse. The most alarming data point involves the very young. Reports describe an emerging stabbing culture. Teenagers aged 13 to 16 starting to carry knives to school or out on the street for protection. When a kid feels the need to arm himself in the most peaceful nation on earth, it means that informal social control, the fact that everyone knew everyone, has collapsed under the weight of demographic growth and urban anonymity. We decided to include Iceland as a warning. The Icelandic model was built on total trust. Unlocked doors, soft borders, minimal checks. But when internal trust meets external predation, with no defences, the system breaks. Iceland kept its front door open and forgot to put a padlock on the nation's gate. So, what does this journey through the last safe Europe really teach us? In 2026, safety isn't a gift of geography, nor an automatic byproduct of economic wealth. The places where the open door is still a reality are the ones that have preserved 3 pillars many countries are starting to forget. Number 1. Safety isn't wealth, it's cohesion. It isn't a high GDP that makes a country safe. Just look at what's happening in France or the UK. The safest places are those with strong social cohesion, low inequality, and shared values. Dignified poverty is safer than unequal wealth. Number 2. Social control beats the police. Real safety doesn't come from cameras or riot gear officers, but from the social pressure of neighbours and the absence of anonymity. Total privacy is the enemy of total safety. Number 3. Innocence is no longer enough. Ireland teaches us that being good people, or living on an island, won't protect you if you don't actively defend your legal and economic borders. Modern safety requires active defence against the globalisation of crime. And what do you think? What's the situation in your country? Which other places would you have included on this list? Let us know in the comments. And for a broader perspective, we strongly recommend watching this video, where we revealed the most dangerous neighborhoods and ghettos in Europe. It's the exact opposite of the model we've seen so far. That's it for today. See you next time.